Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is Robert from Islam for Europeans. Please like and subscribe to the channel. So someone gave me this video. It's a short by Sheikh Shadee Al-Masry regarding convert women and how to seek out marriage. So I'm gonna play the video in full, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. Now, I have great respect for Sheikh Shadee Al-Masry. I think he says so many things that are, many imams and sheikhs are afraid to say. He tells it like it is. He has got a lot of Islamic knowledge. I've been in a show before on Safina Society. So I have great respect for the man, but I'm just going to play this and just let you know what I think. So hopefully my screen might disappear, but let's just play it. So hopefully you can hear it.
Woman would want to have friends in the community who would act as their family almost, and don't think that this is new. It's not new. In the old times, when a person entered Islam, he became associated with one of the Arab tribes, because at that point Islam was like 100% Arabs. Now like a few converts come in, but how do they integrate into that community? You basically get adopted. We should adopt that here. If you convert, you see who are your friends in that community. There's no formal agreement to this, but generally you go to them for help, and they become almost akin to an adopted family, and they'll help you get married, help you do everything, help you meet people, etc., etc. How to approach marriage.
Okay, so a few things here. And I can understand where the Sheikh Al-Masri is coming from. Um, because sometimes you see converts who are able to do this. Their success, they're seen as like the success stories. It's kind of a case of survivorship bias. They've converted to Islam, they assimilated into a Muslim community. They dove right in, and alhamdulillah, it worked for them. I'm not going to criticize them for that. Um, but let's be. I think the on the ground reality is quite different. So going back to that study by Yaqeen Institute, where they studied American Muslim converts, one of the question was, um, they had they set of questions. Were the following, were they an influence, or did they factor into your conversion? One of those questions was Muslim boyfriend or girlfriend, right? 30% said no influence, 31% said somewhat, and 39% said a lot. So that means that 70% of American Muslim converts had a Muslim boyfriend or girlfriend before they converted to Islam. So that's a huge number. And, you know, we're assuming that, you have a Muslim family that takes you in, that they're practicing, that they're, understanding of convert situations, that they're willing to, talk to your non-Muslim family members. But that's usually not the case. Usually these people who are dating, these Muslims who are dating non-Muslim men and women, mostly it's mostly convert men or Muslim men dating non-Muslim women. They're not practicing at all, or else they wouldn't be dating them in the first place. And a lot of times they're going behind their family's back. So that can lead to a lot of, negative impact. And, a lot of the times they'll convert to Islam. Yeah, they may be sincere, but it's also to make it acceptable, to the family and to the community. Now, I'm not criticizing those people who do convert, who are in those situations. I'm not doubting their sincerity. May Allah keep them safe and on the straight path. But, this is a reality. And, this doesn't occur in a vacuum. Secondly, if you look at how many people have converted to Islam recently, we've had a 400% spike in converts to Islam in Europe and the West. Now that's a huge number. I don't think the Muslim community, or Muslim families in general, have the time, the money, the resources to do this, right? So you're talking about a single individual case. If you have a Muslim woman getting quote unquote adopted by into a Muslim family, you multiply that by the dozens of people who convert to Islam. Muslim communities simply don't have the time and the money and the resources to do this. Um, they're already working full-time jobs. Many of them are extremely busy. Many of them don't go to the masjid, right? So, it would be an enormous endeavor for Muslim communities to take this on. It would almost have to be like an organization like UNICEF, where you take on an orphan. So I think that it would stretch Muslim communities way too thin. You don't know who you're getting. Like you could get a Muslim family that's great. You could get a Muslim family that simply doesn't know how to deal with either the convert or the convert's non-Muslim family. So it's kind of like the whole analogy of you're trying to put out a house fire with a tub of liquid and you don't know if it's water or pure gasoline. So that's another issue. And thirdly, he mentioned that this was done by the Arabs during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, that's a totally different situation, isn't it? Because Arabs were 100% of the population at the time, right? So, for two reasons. One is that even the non-Muslims were from the Arab culture. So it was the same Arab monoculture, whether that's Mecca or Medina. Yeah, there were some different nuances, but it was generally the same culture. They ate the same food, they dressed in the same clothes, and so on and so forth. Um, to be adopted by a Muslim family nowadays, Muslims are a minority in the West, right? And you're adopting people who aren't Arab, right? So what are they going to maintain from their culture, really? Like, are they going to, eat the same food, dress the same way, talk the same way? I keep making the argument that culture doesn't exist on an individual basis. You can tell these converts, don't change who you are, but you can't ask, you know, like I said, culture doesn't exist individually. When you're in a room full of Pakistanis, you're going to walk and talk and act like they do. When you're in a room full of Arabs, you're going to walk, talk, and act like they do. You're not going to talk about the football game. You're not going to talk about, other things, the converts are talking about and everything. So that's another thing. And, also, yes, I do believe that, the Muslim community plays a role in trying to integrate these converts. But adoption, you know, people still have lives to lead. It's unrealistic to ask all these people who are taking their Shahada to just pack up and, be adopted by a Muslim family while still maintaining all the things they have to do, with the non-Muslim spheres that they live in. We still have to maintain relationships with our families, with our communities, um, and to just up and leave. I mean, yeah, some people are, they're down to do that, but the majority of people are just normal everyday people. You can't ask them to be, get adopt. It's difficult. It's challenging enough to take your shahada and step into Islam. That comes with a whole lot of challenges in and of itself. But then to add additionally on top of that, going into a completely different cultural community that you don't know very well, and have to deal with all your family and community problems. Um, like it can work. I mean, maybe there might be individual cases of this working, but for the vast majority of people who take their shahada, I can't see it panning out. Now, a different way to look at this is, look at the African American community. They don't need to do this. They don't need to, adopt into or assimilate into, a totally different Muslim family. They might already have an aunt or an uncle or a brother or a father or sister who's already Muslim. So Islam has already been, successfully embedded in the whole African American cultural experience, right? So the whole adoption thing is just it's unnecessary. They already have part of their tribe or their nation that's already Muslim. A more effective approach is if the converts from that group, if they collectivized into a sub community, that way they can deal with each other's problems. And that goes to my next point is that I think born Muslims, by and large, they're very welcoming of converts. They're very happy to see us. They want to help us out. They want to shower us with gifts and so on and so forth. But I think one of the main issues is that they have no desire to interact with our very little desire or like willingness to interact with our non-Muslim family and community. They don't really want to enter these environments, like going to our family's house, going to the places where we work, and vice versa too. Yeah, for Western converts, for example, white Western converts, it's the other way around as well. Our non-Muslim family community simply doesn't want to go to a mosque, right? So, you're caught between two worlds. And, to say, it's not really integration, it's assimilation. You're packing up and leaving and joining a new tribe. I mean, in the old days, that may have worked. It was a very rough time back in the day. You needed support from a tribe, in the seventh century, because life was very rough. Um, so this is just the way it was. And it's not, I mean, converting to Islam is difficult. It's going to be difficult no matter what. But I don't think you can copy and paste what they did in the seventh century and, apply it to what's going on in the 21st century, especially, like I said before, when there's Dawa dating going on, when Muslims are a minority in the West, Islam already seems foreign to many people in the West because their part of their population is not converted to Islam as a group. Um, and like it's just it may work for some people, but I don't think as a majority solution for the most part that this is going to work. So like I said, I have a lot of respect for Sheikh Shadee Al-Masry. Maybe if he sees this video, we could discuss this further on his channel. I would love to. And I just also like the fact that he didn't mention that he says specifically convert women. I mean, what about the men? Like why aren't the men mentioned? Is it because that most Muslim families are much more reluctant to marry their daughter to a male convert? Um, lots to chew on here. So, in conclusion, let me know what you think in the chat about this subject. I do want to get your opinion. Um, and I would like to talk to more scholars about this opinion as well. I just think that, given, the world that we're living in the 21st century, I don't think it's feasible. I think the cost would be outrageous. Not just the financial cost, but the cost in terms of resources, what each family would have to do. Um, and, like with all the problems that converts are facing, yes, it can help, I'm assuming, but as an added thing, having a Muslim family you can always go to when you need advice or help. I think that's good as like a supplement, right? I don't think it's a catch-all solution. I think that, converts need to organize themselves and create a wolf pack. And, the other resources that currently exist, that Islamic organizations already have, you can still have those things, and even, what Sheikh Shadi al-Masri is suggesting, it can work for some people, but I don't think it's a catch-all solution to most of the people who take their Shahada for those reasons. So let me know what you think in the chat. I'm Robert at Islam for Europeans. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.